I invite you now to come with me and hear one of the most inspiring and emotional speeches ever given in the history of this country. The date, March 23rd, 1775. The place, well, it's a wooden-sided church with a low, squat belfry and located in what was then a fairly small country town called Richmond, Virginia. And that church is hosting the 1775 Colony Convention made up of delegates from all over Virginia. And the weather, well, it's cold and damp like March can be in the South, but if the weather outside is chilly, inside the church the fire of a debate is heating up that will push the engine of fate and affect no less than the destiny of the nation that we now call America. Three very fine gentlemen have just spoken in fierce opposition to a motion made by Mr. Patrick Henry that the colony of Virginia should prepare herself to repulse by violent force of arms the invasion from Britain that is sure to come. And now that same orator, Pat Henry, is climbing the circular stairs to mount the pulpit of the church. And those that know him well, they call him Pat Henry, or the Son of Thunder, or the Lion of Liberty. But all the delegates lean forward in their pews and tilt their faces upward so they can follow his ascension. And before he starts, that lion turns around and sweeps all the delegates with his hunter's gaze, and perhaps in that moment his mind is with his much mourned wife, who has died with great difficulty some 5 short weeks ago, and yet here he stands. Now, Pat Henry is no stranger to the pulpit of a church. He was born a pastor's son, and he's become famous of an advocate at law. His oratorical heroes are Samuel Davies and George Whitefield, two of the most powerful evangelists of the time. Now, Pat Henry knows that what he says next could very well ignite a firestorm of strife and struggle for liberty for his people and his country. But he also knows that he has a mind and a heart full of the guidance of a divine providence. And so he begins. No man thinks more highly than I do of the patriotism of the very worthy gentlemen who have just addressed this house. But different men may see the same object in very different lights. And were I to hold back my opinion in such a time as this for fear of giving offense, I should consider myself guilty of an act of treason toward my country and an act of disloyalty toward the majesty of heaven, whom I revere above all earthly kings. Now, it is natural for man to indulge in the illusion of hope. We will turn our eyes away from an unpleasant sight, and we will listen to the song of that siren of hope until she has transformed us into beast. But is this the part of wise men engaged in an ardent and glorious struggle for liberty? Are we disposed to be part of those who, having eyes, see not, and ears, hear not? For my part, whatever anguish of spirit it may cost me, I want to know the whole British ministry over the last 10 years to occasion such hope? Is it perhaps that insidious smile with which they have received our petitions of late? Trust it not. It may prove a snare unto your feet. Do not suffer yourselves to be betrayed with a kiss. Now ask yourselves how this gracious behavior compares with the warlike objects which now darken our waters and cover our lands. These are the agents of submission and slavery, the last arguments to which a tyrant will resort. What have we to oppose them? Shall we try argument? We have been trying that for the last 10 years. We have supplicated, we have petitioned, and we have prostrated ourselves at the foot of the throne. Our petitions have been disregarded. Our supplications have provoked more violence and insult, and we have been spurned with contempt from the foot of the throne. Now, if we wish to be free, if we do not wish to basely abandon the noble struggle in which we pledged ourselves never to abandon until we had achieved the glorious object of that contest, we must fight. I repeat it. We must fight. An appeal to arms and the God of hosts is all that is left us. Well, they tell us we are weak. But when shall we be stronger? Will it be next week? Will it be next year? Will it be when we have totally disarmed ourselves and are bound hand and foot, and there is a British Guard stationed in every house? Shall we acquire the means of defense by lying supinely upon our backs, with our hands and feet bound in chains? We are not weak if we make a proper use of the means that the God of heaven has placed into our hands. Besides, we shall not fight our battle alone. There is a just God who presides over the destinies of nations, who will raise up friends to fight alongside us. And the battle is not to the strong alone. It is to the active, the vigilant, the brave. And if we were base enough to wish it, it is now too late to withdraw from the contest. There is no retreat, but in submission and slavery. Our chains are forged. Their clanking can be heard on the plains of Boston. War is inevitable, and let it come. I repeat, let it come. Now, gentlemen may cry, peace, peace, but there is no peace. The next gale that sweeps from the north will bring to our ears the clash of resounding arms. Our brethren are already in the field. Why stand we here idle? What is it that you wish? What is it that you would have his life